Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm talking about how to use dictation to write your book, whether you write fiction or non-fiction. So I've now used dictation for 3 books. The first one I did was Destroyer of Worlds, which actually is award nominated, so you can definitely write a decent book with dictation. My last novel, Map of Shadows, was also written with dictation, and The Healthy Writer, all my chapters in this book and some of Dr. Ewan's were written with dictation. And of course, some famous writers who use dictation include Dan Brown, Winston Churchill, Barbara Cartland, and Sir Terry Pratchett, who wrote the Discworld series. When he got Alzheimer's, he started using dictation. So dictation has been used by lots of people to write lots of books. So what are some of the reasons that you might decide to try dictation? So first of all, health reasons. So I'm standing up right now, and we as writers obviously spend so much time hunched over, and we can really damage our bodies on the long term. So if you want to have a healthy writing life, then using dictation can really help with RSI, with back pain, with all kinds of things. And I actually dictated a chapter of Map of Shadows while walking along the canal path where I often walk, and it's interesting. I've got my little dictaphone here, my little Sony. I'll come back to how you can dictate in a minute. But essentially, you can go out there in the world and dictate while you walk. So health is one reason. The second reason is writing speed. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that first draft can be difficult. So although I love writing, sometimes the first draft can really be hard. I love inventing things, coming up with ideas, but turning ideas from brain to page, typed words on a page, can be pretty hard. And what's so interesting with dictation is you can actually get a first draft done really fast. So with Map of Shadows, I basically booked a room, because at home my husband works in the same room as me, so I booked a room where I could dictate, and essentially did pretty much 2 hours a day dictating for some of that, and then getting the transcription sorted for the other bit, and essentially did that first draft in under a month. Now I can now dictate up to 5,000 words an hour, which is much faster than I can type. I can usually get around 2,000 words an hour if I type. So although there's some editing to be done afterwards, you can actually write a lot faster with dictation. And the third reason is really that removal of critical voice. So we get so obsessed with having correct words when we type. And of course, how I'm speaking to you now, how I'm using my voice, is completely different to how I would convey the same information on the page to you. So, for example, this information about dictation is actually a chapter in The Healthy Writer, but if you read that chapter, it would be completely different to how I'm speaking now, even though it stems from dictation originally. So when we type, we tend to self-censor ourselves just automatically. We can't help it. There's a thought that arises, but between the thought and the page, there will be some kind of feeling that perhaps that's not the right word, or we try and polish it even before we put it on the page. But dictation stops that self-censorship, and I think that's amazing. It certainly means that dialogue, if you write fiction, can be very powerful and much better because you're speaking it and it's more natural. For non-fiction, it means if you're a speaker rather than a writer and you have more of a professional business, you can get your words on the page much more quickly. Those are some really good reasons why you might use dictation for your books. But I know all the excuses that are coming up in your head right now, because I had them too. So some of the excuses that you will be feeling are: I'm not the type of person who can speak my words. I need to type. It's the only way I know how to get words on the page. So that's a sort of, it's about you. Then I don't want to say the punctuation out loud is another common one, because when you dictate, certainly if you use software like Dragon, then you do need to say at least full stop or period at the end of a sentence. And you don't have to do all the punctuation marks, but you do need to say something, otherwise you just get a stream stream of consciousness. And I'll come back to the technical bit in a minute. Another one, I write in public, so I can't dictate, and I used to say that, but then I booked a room at a co-working space and got over that one. Other common issues include I have an accent, so the software won't understand me. But again, you know, things are changing so fast in the voice recognition space. Most people's accents will be fine. Then I write fantasy novels with interesting names and the software won't recognize that. Well, that might be true, but you can use sort of find and replace later. So instead of a really long, interesting name, you could use like Peter or Jane and then change out Peter and Jane later for your interesting name. And then I don't know how to set it up technically, and I can't spare the time to learn how to dictate. That last one's really interesting because if you can't spare the time to learn how to use a new tool, there may come a day when you are forced to. And many people who are very, very good at dictation have had to learn how to do it because, let's face it, we are, or those of us who do this full time, our livelihood is based on the words we put out there into the world. And if we end up being injured by this very job, then we need to figure out ways of doing it. So for me, it was very much, I need to learn dictation to write faster, but also to be a healthy writer. Okay, so if you're going to try dictation, then here's some lessons I've learned. So first of all, yes, you're going to feel self-conscious. Yes, you're going to feel stupid. Yes, it's going to feel wrong. And when you get that first session transcribed, it's going to be full of mistakes and you're going to be thinking, oh, it'd just be easier and quicker to type it. And that's true at the beginning, but trust me, you will get better. So I tried, first of all, I tried Dragon and Dragon Dictate, which is the sort of most famous software, although most computers have some kind of voice to text software now. But basically I tried using Dragon on the screen. So I stood in front of my computer like this, I started talking and watched the words appear on the screen, and it did not work for me at all. I just felt even more constricted. I kept trying to replace the words. My editor just went in overdrive. So the method that I found really useful, and of course you need to find your own method, but for me I'm using this small Sony dictaphone, and basically what I do is I have some notes written about what I want to write, a bit like the notes I have for recording this video, and then I will press record. And then I'll say something like, Joanna walked into the room, full stop. And then I'll press pause. Now how I do it is basically I think of the sentence, I speak the sentence and I say full stop, or of course Americans say period, and then I press pause again. And that just basically gives me time to think. So I'm not talking stream of consciousness, a bit like I am now. I'm actually saying full stop. And what I find with the transcription software option is that it needs the full stop in order to kind of get the words more correct. So that's the best way I found. But if you're struggling, the other good way is to use a transcription service, especially if you're writing non-fiction. If you've got recordings of you speaking, you can use a service like speechpad.com, or there's lots of different ones that you can upload a recording and a human will transcribe it. So in that way you can get the punctuation done for you. It's a bit more expensive, but if you want to get started, that is a good way. You can also use your smartphone. There are lots of apps for speech to text, and the quality of the microphone does make a difference. So you could get a lavalier microphone. If you have one on your desk, you can use, I have the Blue Yeti, and I'll put the links to the gear I use in the description below. So once you've actually recorded a session and you've had it transcribed, you will need to go through and edit it. But what I find is that light edit gets easier and easier the more you dictate. So what I found with Map of Shadows was that the first few chapters were pretty highly edited, and then by the end I was getting the hang of the transcription and the way I would speak, and I didn't have to do much of a light edit then, and then I would go back and do the full draft later. But producing that first draft actually became a lot quicker and a lot easier with dictation. So of course there are different methods, and I have a number of interviews on the channel with people who've used dictation. So Kevin J. Anderson is one, and then Monica Lionel, Scott Baker, who talks about training your dragon. So if you want to use Dragon software in a much more developed way than I do, because literally I just feed in my MP3 and get the transcription out again, then go and listen to those interviews. And also Christopher Downing, who wrote Foolproof Dictation, I really recommend his method, which is basically to do rounds of dictation. So in the first round, you might just dictate a paragraph, and then you transcribe that, and then you go back and you do a second round and expand the paragraph into 5 paragraphs, and then you do the third round and expand again. So there's lots of different methods. You have to find the one that's right for you. But what I would say is you need a good reason why, because I've kind of gone in and out of dictation over probably 3 or 4 years. You know, I've tried it and then stopped, and then tried it and then stopped, and now I'm really into it now. And you have to have your reason why. So is it health? Is it you want to write faster? Is it you want to make that first draft less censored? What is your reason why you want to learn this? And then what are the things that are stopping you? And get over those and get dictating, because really it's made a big difference to my writing and also my health. So I hope it works for you. Okay, so today I've talked about how to use dictation to write your book, whether you write fiction or non-fiction. And if you'd like some more help with your novel particularly, go and check out the How to Write a Novel cheat sheet at thecreativepenn.com/7 steps. So happy writing or dictating, and I'll see you next time.